Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, November 18th, 2025. It is 4 o'clock, and this is the regular business meeting of the Jefferson Public Utility District Board of Commissioners. My name is Jeff Randall. I am president of the commission and calling this meeting to order. Jefferson PUD will be offering both virtual online meetings as well as in-person meetings unless advance notice is provided. Online participant audio will be muted upon entry. Please unmute at the appropriate time to speak. And if you're calling in, use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise a hand to request to speak. So let's do a roll call of commissioners. My name is Jeff Randall, Commissioner for District 1 and President of the Board.
Kenneth Collins, Commissioner, District 2.
Dan Tupper, Commissioner for District 3.
We're all present. We have a quorum, so we shall proceed. We have a rather lengthy agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, or can we go ahead?
There is.
Sorry.
I think we're going to not ask for a motion on the transmission contract. So we're just going to discuss it, but
Okay,
not make a motion on that one.
I don't think that needs a change in the agenda.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor of approving the agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right, we have a first public comment period that allows for members of the public to comment, limited to 3 minutes each, on any items not specifically listed on the agenda or for items listed on the consent agenda. Prior to any public comment, members of the public must first be recognized by the president and are not permitted to disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct and fair progress of the commission's meeting. After an initial warning by the president, individuals who violate these guidelines through actual disruption of the commission meeting will be dropped from the meeting. If that were to happen, and it hasn't in my memory anyway. So do we have anybody who'd like to comment on not on the agenda or on items on the consent agenda? Leo?
Just wondering how come in the financial report now it doesn't show on the payments, it doesn't show who they were paid to.
Okay, we'll ask staff to respond to that during their reports. Did you have anything else? Okay. Bill?
Bill Stover, District 1. I think in the past, it's been the PUD's electric utility decision not to allow battery backup systems to use a meter collar, which is a simplified method of doing grid isolation, saves money and time for the customer and the installers. I'm wondering if that could be revisited. I noticed it was allowed in Tacoma, I believe. So I'm lobbying for that, not because I'm already past that at my installation, but there are other people that are asking me about battery installations, and the products out there are going to go in a lot quicker, easier. The grid isolation, the current transformer functions all don't have to be separately wired up. It's just a little extension on the back of the power meter.
Okay, so question about the PUD's standards when we've got battery backup systems. So we'll see if we can respond to that during the manager and staff reports. Did we have any other comments? I see a question online. Roger, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Roger Risley, District 2. Question about brushing out the lines. Coming to my poll, the area contractor isn't real happy about the condition of all the brush that they have to cut through to get the lines in. I was under the impression that we had a $435,000 contract for East Discovery Bay to brush that out prior to the lines going in. I'm asking because it's been 51 months since I asked to have that brushed out, and it still hasn't been brushed out, and I thought this was my big chance. And it's not just me. I assume it's all of the other customers having the same problem. So I guess my question is, why are we doing this backwards? Why aren't we brushing this out and then running the lines instead of running the lines and doing absolute minimum brushing out? Thanks.
Thanks for your question, Roger, and we'll see if we can respond to that during staff. And please stay online if we have to ask a clarification. Any other questions for people online? And both people in the room have asked their questions, so looks like we're going to move on to general manager and staff reports. Joe.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're going to start with Mike Bailey announcing about the state auditor.
So just so the board knows, the state auditor's office is getting ready to start our 22-23 CETA, the Clean Energy Transformation Act, compliance audit. Just making sure that we're following everything that we're supposed to with that. So we did the entrance last Thursday, so they're just starting off with that. So just wanting to keep the board informed of that going on. Last year we did have a couple of findings that we'll have to respond to on how we've made improvements on them, which everybody had findings almost last year because of the new laws and everything, understanding the laws and how things are done. I don't remember the 2 findings right off the top of my head, but we'll have to respond to those and how we've straightened those up as part of the audit.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen real quick.
One of the findings actually was due to the data that we were provided by the state for carbon accounting, I believe.
I think that was one of the energy, the gas, I think is what it was. Greenhouse gas. That's what the word.
It's okay, Mike.
It's late on a Tuesday.
It is. I feel the same way.
Okay, so last meeting we talked about staff's application in progress for funding from the Washington State Commerce Department for electric reliability. We're putting in an application for $3 million to separate out current Chimicum feeder 11 into 2 feeders, taking traffic away or taking load off of Marrowstone Island and splitting it over to with Oak Bay Road. We're also applying for $750,000 to pay for tree trimming going from Chimicum all the way down Oak Bay Road, Beaver Valley Road, around Port Ludlow, and down into Thorndike on all of those feeders that are some of our most problematic outage areas. As part of that application, they score you very highly for community outreach. We put out a direct survey to every email that we had for customers living on those feeders. And within 24 hours, we had over 400 responses. We've had 550 responses to date. Folks have a lot to say about the outages that they've been experiencing. And we are just going to go through a little bit quickly all the aggregated responses. Number of people in the household, majority are 2-person households. A lot of folks, as Jean reported in her CETA data, are elderly, are primarily over 65. Most of them have purchased backup power at their homes. A lot of them noted that they purchased $15,000 backup power systems, and others that are dragging around generators. What motivated them: emergency preparedness, too many power outages, a lot of medical equipment, a lot of CPAP machines, and then people working from home. What type of power do they use for their backup power? It's mostly portable generators, a number of standby, and I'll share this with the commissioners at another time. A lot of folks have backup heat, wood, and propane. What we're looking at for this grant is how to reduce some carbon emissions, and with a lot of those folks relying on those carbon emitting backup sources, if we can improve our reliability, we reduce that carbon being emitted into the atmosphere. Other main things, we asked if they were to have more reliability, would they be interested in having heat pumps? One of the advantages that heat pumps provides to people is in the summertime, When we have the wildfire smoke incidents, I know so many of us don't have air conditioning and have to try to jerry rig, water filtration systems over their air filtration systems over their open windows. And having a heat pump system allows them to have air conditioning and close up those windows. And greater reliability makes that a more affordable investment year round. And then just the response of how the outages affect the people. Loss of food was a big one, loss of communications, inability to do work, and a lot of comments about vulnerability and loss of safety and security, especially among elderly residents. We have a number of comments that they left, a lot of meaningful and telling things, and I'll kind of summarize those and send them on to the commissioners. But I just wanted to pass on that information to you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, what would the $3 million grant from the Department of Commerce do?
So with that, I probably didn't explain it clearly enough. We have right now Oak Bay Road and Marrowstone Island and part of Hadlock going from the Chimicum substation are all on one feeder. It's 2,000 customers. At the very ends of those feeders, we have some low voltage issues. We've had some reliability. So we're going to build a new underground feeder that goes right to Indian Island, breaks off Marrowstone and Indian Island from Chimicum 11, and then so that there'll be essentially two feeders. So each of them will have less load, more capacity. That underground section will be less prone to outages, and then they'll be able to back each other up. And the feeder going down to Oak Bay will also be able to help back up Port Ludlow in a more significant way than we've had before.
My understanding was it's also kind of like if you had one big circuit in your house and you were able to divide it into two circuits.
Correct.
With two different circuit breakers so that they could be isolated and fed separately. And
The common remedy to a overloaded, poor reliable feeder is to divide and conquer. Divide and conquer in a positive way.
Yep. So that's the one we've been applying for Defense Department funding for years and years and have never been awarded. And we're hoping. We met with the state Commerce Department today, and they felt it was a strong application, but we'll see.
so we're just at the application stage.
It's
on this
due
one,
on
Bill.
Thursday, so we're just rounding everything up.
And did I hear 750,000 of that 3 million would go to tree trimming?
No, that would be an additional 750,000. Yep, we're submitting for two projects.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's conceivable we could get one but not the other? Or
It is
do they tie
conceivable.
together?
That is why. What's that? Oh, okay. That is why we're applying for two, because there's only $17 million. It's a small pool, so we're just trying to hedge our bets and see what we can get.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So at our last our meeting, we had Bonneville come and present the power contract proposal. That is now signed, fully executed. So Jefferson PUD's customers can now count on affordable, reliable, mostly carbon-free power resources through 2044 as a result of that fully executed contract. Unfortunately, in the current contract, the operating conditions are such that Bonneville's reserves have been drawn down to a point that has triggered a power surcharge of what we now understand to be 2.2%. So beginning with December's bills, going through September, it's projected that Bonneville is going to need an additional $341,000 from Jefferson PUD customers to restore those reserves.
And sorry, $341,000 over what period of time?
What is that, 9 months? 9 or 10 months?
Okay.
It was a total of 40 million of overall the customers, our shares 330 some thousand.
And is that, how are we dealing with that? Because our rates are set. This is an additional charge that we're going to be paying BPA. Okay.
So we're going to be burning into our reserves, and as we roll up on mid-year, when we have to decide what we're going to do in July, we're going to have to factor this into rate setting because it is going to be a budget variance. The board has already adopted the budget. Now this is another 341,000 impact that wasn't predictable at the time we adopted the
And
budget.
sometimes BPA giveth and sometimes it taketh away. So a
Right.
couple of years ago, they gave with a lot and now they're taking a little away because their outside power sales have not been.
My
good
my
as they-
understanding is they have giveth more than they have taketh. So
Yeah.
far.
Yes, they have. They have. We got a lot of good money back from them. Okay.
All right. We recently had a public information fund meeting about the public infrastructure fund. I mislabeled the acronym. There was a request by that board, primarily on behalf of the county, to provide a vending machine for water in the Quilcene area. The ask was made of the PUD to evaluate that. We did a business case on it and believe that the water demand and the cost of the machine created unfavorable economics for continuing down that path. So we brought that back to the PIF board and suggested that that wasn't the viable path forward, and then we regroup and come up with something else. So that project is now canceled.
Okay.
Pending some other idea for how to resolve the problem that the community has down there, which is some wells not performing, some homes that don't have wells needing a viable potable water source.
Sure. So the problem still exists, and I'm hoping that we're going to continue talking with county staff and see what, if the PUD can play a role in helping with
Right.
this issue.
As the
Okay.
local water purveyor, we have an opportunity to help, but we need to do so in a way that's financially affordable to the
Sustainable. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
On a lighter note, PUD staff are sponsoring a Toys for Tot drive. So we're, if the commission wanted to participate with staff, we're doing the pickup the week of December 8th. So we have a little friendly internal competition going on amongst teams to see who's able to be the most generous for our community during the Christmas or during the holiday period. We also have an opportunity, and we're asking staff to consider making payroll deductions for Give Jefferson, or the nonprofit that provides critical funds to support our local organizations and a safety net for those in need in our county. And that campaign is going to run through December 31st. I don't recall what the contribution was last year, but it was substantial. It was well north of $30,000, I believe. So, I also wanted to include some staff kudos. So this is going to be a little bit hard for my colleague to hear probably, but hopefully those who are paying attention in the public on our board packets, I know you all have seen a significant improvement in the timeliness and completeness and the quality of the board packets that are posted. I see Shannon on a biweekly basis working with staff and really trying to make sure that we're deploying high quality materials to our community for them to review the agenda packet before the board meeting. And I'm just deeply grateful for our commitment to meet our public expectations around posting these materials, having clarity in how we run our public meetings with sufficient information and financials and all the other things that she puts into the packet are deeply appreciated. And I just feel like the PUD, not by any role that I've played, but is up their game. Her tenure and my tenure have sort of overlapped. I don't want you to think I had anything to do with that. That was all on her. Another staff kudo. I had an opportunity to meet with a couple of our linemen today, Brandon and Ted. They it just reminded me how committed our local high voltage linemen are to restore our community's power. Over the last 2 weeks, we have had 30 outage incidents impacting 2,866 customers. And these two linemen and our other line crews have just, they come out in some of the nastiest weather, work nonstop until our customers are restored, and their commitment to our community's reliability is just amazing. And so I wanted to, we're kind of obviously ramping up in the storm season, and I wanted to call out a PUD lineman who, prior to this PUD forming, generally didn't live in this community, and now we have local, highly trained, highly dedicated resources that are keeping our lights on in the community. And that wraps up my management report.
Okay, so we had two questions. One was from Leo, and Leo, was your question that we're not showing the individual check payments like we used to?
Show
Vouchers.
Vouchers.
in the drafts, and would show who it was to.
Okay.
And then there would be a brief thing about like what it was for, but no longer shows that anymore.
Okay, so
Thank you. I did take some notes and forgot to refer to them. So the detailed vouchers are not required to be posted. Our other peer utilities don't have that level of detail posted. The information is available. So if it's of particular interest to you, we can, through a public records request, give that information to you. I decided that having detailed information about the employees, their employee name, that sort of information creates additional cybersecurity risk and an opportunity for people that are trying to do penetration testing or do spear phishing to our employees and create cyber risk for us. They just don't need that easy of an invitation to know who's who and their employee numbers and that kind of information. So it's still available. If it's of interest to you, we can get it to you. The question about meter callers that Philip brought up, Tacoma does not allow them. While I was at Tacoma, we were engaging. We had a Tesla employee who was involved in marketing power walls, and we were working a pilot with one customer to see how that variance might work. So Tacoma was considering what the impacts of changing their normal standards are. Their normal standards are similar to our normal standards in that we do not allow a third party to insert a device, a caller, between our revenue meter and the customer's home. I understand what your point is. It does create a more streamlined ability to interface a power wall, even to interface a generator. It creates operational challenges for the security of the meter being plugged in, and creates a significant amount of leverage that can cause damage to either the home or the meter or the quality of the jaw interface. So it is a trade-off. And so anyway, I know Tacoma is struggling with that, but so far hasn't changed the standard, and our standard is similar to theirs. So I think it's something that we could consider, but it's a balancing act, and one that we haven't chosen to engage in yet.
And right now, the way the batteries would be treated in a house and the electrical equipment and shutoffs and disconnects would be identical with how backup generators are wired and dealt with. So we're not treating the solar customers any differently than we're treating anybody who wants to do backup power.
That's right.
For their home.
That's exactly right, Jeff. So all of that needs to be done downstream of the meter service, and generally downstream of the main electrical panel, and that's current state. But Philip is right. That is an expensive solution. It's just the solution that most other utilities, including Jefferson PUD, are currently engaging in for customers that need that.
And then the last question that Roger had, he lives off Anderson Lake Road. It didn't quite follow what
I didn't understand it either.
Improvement. Roger, are you still on the line?
Vegetation management.
Well, I'll say this, and Will can probably complement what I'm trying to say or correct me. We generally, when we're going to string fiber in, we do brush out to. Unfortunately, Leo has firsthand information or firsthand knowledge and exposure to this problem, but we're trying to brush out the area that we're going to string in fiber in advance of stringing in that fiber. So the reason I'm referring to Leo is because in the process of doing that on Marrowstone, we've damaged his fiber several times, and are trying to. We are going to make sure that our crews are doing better. But Roger, could you clarify what your point was?
I don't know if he's still on there or not.
Yes. He is.
It sounded like there was some fiber being.
He is.
Oh, yeah,
Go
I'm
ahead.
unmuted now. Yeah, I got the I got the line run first instead of getting it brushed out first. And I'm wondering, is that all I get? I've been waiting for 51 months to get that line brushed out. That was when I first reported it, needed to be brushed out. So, and what's the status of that? I thought you had a contract out to brush these Discovery Bay, the people's poles, prior to your aerial contractor coming in and putting in the fiber. So what's the status of that, and how do I get my line brushed out? Isn't it supposed to be all the way down to the ground and 10 feet on either side?
It's
Thank
not
you.
all the ground 10 feet on either side, Roger, but we'll take a look. They have brushed through that area. When Scott Bancroft is back, our vegetation manager, I'll check with him.
So there, are we
Thank you.
going to be running fiber out there, or we've already done it, or?
We've already run the underground fiber. I think there's a few more aerial fiber. It's almost complete.
Okay, I guess, Roger, if you have more questions, maybe follow up with Will directly by email outside the meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
That completes
Okay.
management reports.
All right. To commissioner reports, Commissioner Collins, you want to go first?
Sure. So I attended the PERM's executive committee meeting on November 5th and their board meeting on the 6th in Seattle. And the most, I think, significant area of discussion had to do with wildfire management. There had been a problem going back a couple of years now that the conglomerates which provide reinsurance for PERM, which cover in two levels, one $50 million policy, and then on top of that, a $35 million policy. The insurers, in reaction to a very expensive wildfire that had occurred a few years back, had stated that we're no longer going to offer that kind of coverage. And that precipitated several PUDs, large PUDs, Grant, Chelan, Snohomish, Douglas, and Clark at the time, to enter a discussion about having a pool that the PUDs would contribute to so that it would make up for the absence of the insurance coverage. So there were a couple of meetings. They laid the groundwork for doing this. And then, as it turns out, the insurance coverage has become available. It's not cheap, but it's available. And given the fact that that coverage can be purchased, it was felt that we're going to need it in the future, but right now, going forward with the creation of a pool that would be somewhat redundant with the commercial insurance available didn't make sense. So that's going to be revisited down the road. Again, the feeling is one or two wildfires from now, it will become a live issue again. So the board approved renewal of the contract for both the broker who works with us and the attorney, as well as the administrative staff. They raised the allowance as to how much individual PUDs could settle on their own. It had been a limit of $1,500. Now it's been raised to $5,000. Let's see. Interestingly enough, the cost of insurance for cyber coverage has been pretty much flat. That has not gone up significantly. Let's see. Oh, there was some discussion about this proposed legislation that would create a wildfire pool, and it was felt that the frank opinion by some of the people in attendance was that it was a stupid idea. And maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Ill-informed.
But the way it was proposed, it'd be obligatory for the investor-owned utilities, but optional for consumer-owned utilities. So we'll have to see what Olympia does about that. Had meetings on the 10th with the general manager and legal counsel. Partially attended Waputa, interspersed with medical appointments the 12th through the 14th. Met with the general manager on the 17th. Plan to attend our board meeting tomorrow. And we'll meet with the general manager on the 24th and on the 1st of December. And that's my report.
Okay.
One quick question, Commissioner, on the PERMS proposal to do a pool, would that be compulsory if you're in PERMS for the wildfire pool? If that comes to fruition, would that be compulsory or would that be optional?
So PERMS would join as an organization along with the other large utilities that are not PERMS members. And we would be included because we're part of PERMS.
So would we pay more into PERMS for that pool then? How would that work? Because I'm just looking at, it's going to be a limited pool and there's going to be higher risk utilities. We may never get a wildfire a chance to utilize a return on our investment there.
Hopefully not. But there's a trade-off, and part of the impetus is or has been that the money that had been going into the liability pool would then be used for funding this pool. So the premiums would go down from liability and then be available for funding the PERMS pool. And we would be one there are like 17 members of PERMS, and PERMS would have one vote, and the other large utilities would have a vote. So we wouldn't have 17 votes, but this all, I think, will be addressed subsequently as the need arises.
No, thanks for that background. That's interesting.
Dan, you want to give your report?
Yep, I'll go ahead and go. So I attended the PPC annual conference on November 5th and 6th. On the 6th, as our general manager alluded to, BPA Administrator Harrison talked about the 2% power surcharge. And then at the business meeting on the 6th, the voting members adopted the 2026 budget for $3.1 million, and our dues are going to increase about $3,000. So that's what took place.
What are the dues now, roughly?
Oh, I want to say it was like 21,000 maybe, and
Okay,
it's
so
24, somewhere in that ballpark. Mid 20,000s is what I think what our dues are going to be.
11%
if I had to guess.
increase.
Yeah. And I'll come to that one again. I responded to a couple of emails from our Gardner customers regarding their visit at our last meeting, assuring them that we are listening and taking their comments serious. I met with the general manager on November 10th. Also on the 10th, I listened in on a WAPAG meeting that had to deal with the process right now for the residential exchange program. There was another meeting yesterday, I believe, that I wasn't able to make that one. So that's a process that's moving forward. But BPA is making a run at trying to settle this thing with some kind of a arrangement that maybe the IOUs would find rather than going to a longer litigation or a longer process. So that's kind of where that's at. Attended the Waputa Energy Symposium and Commissioner Education Roundtable on November 12th. I know you guys were in and out of those meetings, so I won't go into detail with that exactly on that particular issue. At the Water Committee meeting, again, there were reports on the future and the importance of maintaining the Public Works Board revolving account. So that's something that we need to be tracking very closely. The executive director of CURB came in and gave a report on their past grant awards and the opportunities for funding that are coming up. Waputa is also looking at some alternatives, options to the current Public Works Board revolving account setup, and maybe there's some other ways that could be tweaked, or maybe disengaging it maybe a little more from the legislature. There's a whole lot of things that they're looking at on how we might deal with that issue down the road. We'll have to see what comes up for legislation during this next session or coming out of that session, what's hot that might not get through, but would definitely be coming to the long session at the beginning of 2027. Also at the water meeting, Mason One general manager was chosen. Kristen Masteller was chosen as the Waputa delegate to the American Waterworks Association annual fly-in, thanks to Jose Escalera. He's our representative of the Water Committee. He put in for that position. There was like 4 or 5 people that put in for that. So it was a contested position, and she got that assignment. Won't talk about the power lunch and what we heard from Department of Ecology. That was kind of, I don't know how to, I won't even comment on that. Didn't sound very hopeful that they're quite getting what's going on. At Government Relations Communications, TVW CEO Renee Sinclair talked about her time as a former legislature and how she's watching the state budget and how it's in trouble now. Some comparisons she made to her thoughts on where that's headed. The Waputa Ad Hoc Public Service Announcement Group, it's a subcommittee, rolled out some potential Waputa approved radio and social media spot promos to talk about public utilities, particularly on the energy and electric side. And then they're also going to develop a podcast, it sounds like, that might occur once a month or every other month or something. So that's kind of interesting to see what's going on with Waputa and the industry, public utility industry trying to message to the public better. So that's encouraging. At the executive committee meeting, the executive board completed the executive director's annual evaluation. Attended the Waputa Board of Directors meeting the next day on the 14th. The 2026 budget was approved. I know Commissioner Collins voted, so I know at least he heard that meeting. Scott Wilson from BPA also confirmed the 2% surcharge, so there's no doubt that that's coming. Our dues went up roughly, I think, about $2,500 in the new budget with Waputa. So that's where that one's at. On November 17th, met with a citizens group in Gardner and discussed electric service, broadband deployment, and the PUD 2026 budget with them. Met with General Manager Wilson later that day. I'm going to attend our special BOC meeting about the Gateway project on November 19th. I met with Joe Wilson on November 24th. And I'm going to attend our special meeting on December 2nd, if that's still on the agenda. I'm assuming it is. So between now and our next meeting, those are the things I'm going to be doing. I did have one other question. I know there's some energy committee stuff, but I'm assuming maybe you're going to report on it. I have a couple questions when we get to the energy, so that's why I skipped that.
Okay, touch on that.
And so I received a call from a gentleman who's one of the directors at the Quilcene Historical Museum. And he was inquiring about the PUD potentially being a sponsor for some of their events. I referred his information to our general counsel and our GM on November 8th, because I'm not sure what the proper avenues or process are for dealing with something like that. So I'm going to get you gentlemen's I know it doesn't happen very often, but your opinion on how we should approach asks from the public like this. How do you see this process? What should we do? Should we bring it up in the meeting like this? Should we take it to the GM? I mean, how do you guys see that?
So what was
Because we
this?
don't have a policy for, I don't know who determines what we sponsor or don't sponsor now.
So they've got an event. They're saying, "Hey, is the PUD interested in being a
That's one
sponsor?"
possibility. They may want to present something different. I don't know. I didn't get into too much
Yeah.
level of detail.
I would kind of guess that maybe that would be referred to our communications person, Jameson, but I don't know.
So
Well, I think it would go to the general manager and maybe legal counsel, because it sounds like it's an ask for gift of public funds, which we can't do.
that's what I respond. The only response I put back to that person was that we have issues like that, and then I forwarded the information to the GM and legal counsel. So I just was curious on you guys' position on. So going to the general manager, is that what I'm hearing with that? Or do we need a policy? Is this something, it doesn't happen often, I wouldn't think, but I don't know how staff deals with it now. Because I don't think we have a budget, quote unquote, budget for these type of things. So just so the public can hear that if they have these kind of requests, they'll understand the process too.
Do you understand the question, Joe?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
This issue came up in my former job, and so first of all, the board has not approved a budget to my awareness that would allow us to dispense these kinds of funds. But I frankly wouldn't recommend that we do have a budget for these kinds of funds unless there's a very clear nexus to part of our mission. So, for example, we do purchase a booth and have a sponsorship role at the Jefferson County Fair, and we're there to advocate for customers to be aware of conservation opportunities, how our products are delivered to them, get some information about broadband and other products and services. So if there's a very clear nexus to our mission, I may recommend that we have a budget for those kinds of situations. But this becomes Pandora's box. You can always find some public good, and we have the public's money available, and we just need to be very disciplined and be very good stewards of how we're spending that money in the context of what the PUD mission is and what we're charged with.
Sure. And we have a booth at Quilcene Days, so we're down there
Right.
too. What were they asking for? I don't follow that.
To maybe sponsor one of they had like 6 or 7 events where they fundraised for the museum, or it may be something different. I didn't get into too much discussion. I just
Okay.
said that, we can't gift public funds, and I would forward it to legal counsel
Okay.
and the GM.
I have a couple of questions, Dan. Following up on the people in Gardner who've had a very difficult experience with outages, do we know the area specifically where those power lines are being impacted? And is there anything we can do about that?
So I have asked electric operations to pinpoint the locations that we've had tree impacts. I haven't received that back from them yet, but we did. The last update that I heard from our vegetation manager was that there was an area where they saw some opportunity, and so they pulled crews from Marrowstone, put them there for 2 days for some additional tree work, and now they're back on point where they were supposed to be. So we haven't had an outage out there since. Now, I believe that the wind was coming from a direction that it hasn't typically blown. So I can't tell you that anything we did changed the outcome. Might just be happenstance. But yeah, 8 outages is a lot in a 6-week period. It is unusual, but I don't have any more detailed information about where those outages
And it sounds like you've asked for that info, and maybe when you get it, you can pass that on to us.
can.
Okay.
Second question. I listened to part of the energy symposium, and I wonder I was a little bit surprised to hear the individual representing the natural gas industry. Was there any acknowledgement that if you're using natural gas, you're still emitting 50% of the kind of carbon that if you were burning coal?
I don't know there was a correlation between the two at the symposium. I know coal got talked because I think it's happening this month that down in Centralia that's going offline with the coal.
Into December.
During December, they talked a little bit about that, but no, I don't think that particular point was brought up to my recollection. I don't know, maybe Jeff, did you?
I didn't
Okay,
catch the
yeah.
energy symposium because I was in a NOAANET board meeting. at
Yeah,
the
I
same time.
don't think that actually, more of the conversation was around messaging and getting, legislators or people, policymakers to the understanding that with the goals that are being put in place, that irregardless of the carbon, how you want to shake it all out, that they're going to need natural gas is becoming more and more consensus and more of a realization to bridge to get us to full decarbonization.
Understood.
So that was kind of the crux of most of the discussion, but I don't know
Yeah.
if there was a direct correlation between coal and natural gas. Okay, sorry, it's best I can do.
All right, my turn.
Your turn.
Okay. So we had an EDC board meeting on November 6th, and the director was out of town for, I think, a family issue. But we had a great discussion. And one of the things that's helpful is that the federal government is open again, because during the meeting it was closed. And one of the big revenue items they have for this year is this recompete grant that they got through the federal government. So they were prevented from billing for any work they were doing while the closure occurred. So hopefully that's being taken care of now that they're back open. We have a budget for 2026. Originally, it was a deficit budget of about $46,000, and they've already closed the gap by $15,000. So that's been good. Creative on filling positions and having some of the positions partially funded by the appropriately by the recompete grant. So the director has been really David Baloff has been really trying to be responsible on closing that grant or that deficit. We had an executive director report given by his staff, and I wanted to highlight three things that came up from that. One of the main goals of the director is to bring new jobs and investment to Jefferson County. And these things I'm going to bring up came out of a retreat that we had with the board and with the staff. Bring new jobs and investment to Jefferson County. Build intergovernmental relations function to facilitate new investment. And how we're going to do that was to have the EDC help with building intergovernmental relations to facilitate new investments and jobs. That the EDC would publish a white paper benchmarking other Washington counties and the approaches that they're taking to attract new jobs and investment and recommendations for local government. So this is, again, something the EDC was going to try and bring to the table. And finally, to identify the most promising physical locations for new economic development and make recommendations to local government stakeholders on what each of us can do, city, county, port, and the PUD, to help with that. So they're, I think, trying to embrace this bigger picture issue than just advising businesses and helping little businesses and getting more involved with economic development at a countywide level. So an issue that's going to come up is that for the last few years, we've been rotating our board members off of the EDC board once a year. And I think they're looking for a little more continuity from us. And they're going to have elections in December for the officers next year. And I think I'm going to be asked to stay on. And I wanted to run this by you two gentlemen, because I know Dan, the
Interesting
EDC
enough, I'll
meetings,
save you the trouble, Jeff. You have my blessing.
the EDC happens at PPC meetings. So anyway,
Yep, you have my blessing.
okay.
That was
So-
already on my radar to ask you if we were on the.
I'm fine with that. That makes
Okay.
sense. Since
I appreciate that.
membership on other boards is 3 years. There's no reason
Okay.
not to.
So, okay, we'll talk about that more when we get to January and we do the board appointments and stuff, but
Just heard that
I'll
you're going to
soon-
be our
I'll be
representative, the
I'll be the guy.
EDC.
Okay. Then NOAANET met, and I didn't go to that live. We got a member report from Okanagan, and it was really interesting to hear about their situation of 8 people per square mile. Real difficult chance.
Berry County.
They did get some funding through the Public Works Board, and they're going to run a new fiber line from their headquarters up to Concanully, which is kind of up in the hills. And one of the things they said they're doing is they're putting I'm going to get this wrong, Curtis, but some sort of junction splitter at each transformer is what I heard. So along the way, they're going to try and create more opportunities and they're going to have like 248 passings or something like that, or 280 residential passings. So they're getting into the fiber business too, or extension of fiber, which they haven't done for a while. Is that similar to what we've got on opportunities to enter into the fiber, the frequency? Okay.
This one that they were speaking about was a specific 26-mile build out to
Right.
get there that they don't currently have today.
Right.
Plus redundancy.
Right. The 2026 budget for NOAANET was approved. Overall, the budget looks pretty good until about 2030, and they need new revenue.
They're about the same as us, right? About 50 some million, right around 50 million.
Yeah, I can't remember the total number, but they're really looking at helping public agencies with fiber offer a public retail option. So they're continuing to develop that. We have been forwarded, and I just saw the email from Ryan Espigard. This is to Joel and Joe. At the December NOAANET board meeting, the staff is hoping to have a vote on allowing Broadlink, Bigfoot, which is an LLC of the Colville Confederated Tribes, join as a member. And there have been issues about jurisdiction and waiving tribal sovereign immunity and all that stuff. Those documents have been forwarded from the proposed interlocal agreement from NOAANET has been forwarded to us. Just saw the email came in yesterday, so we didn't get it on our agenda. And I was going to ask about, when is our board meeting in December?
The 10th.
Yeah.
December 9th.
So okay. So December 9th is our board meeting. I'm going to be I'm going to be in Spokane for the NOAANET board meeting. We're having a dinner that night, so we'd be having our normal 4 to 6 board meeting. Okay. So I guess the question would be, could we squeeze that in onto the agenda, that NOAANET ILA, so that we could have a position on it if we have any objections to it?
Yes.
Okay.
If we need it, we can get it, squeeze it in there.
Okay. And then secondly, so we're on the 2nd, we're going to have this special meeting, and is that on the water rate study FCS?
Yes.
And I know this is a little premature because we haven't even gotten to it yet, but we're going to have a first touch from Will tonight on broadband rates. I'm wondering if we should also, and we can, I guess, talk about it when we get to this item, if we should have another special meeting in December to have a follow-up on broadband, so we don't get it jumbled into this December meeting. But anyway, I'm crossing my wires here. So we'll hopefully have something on NOAANET that we can discuss before the next NOAANET board meeting. Okay.
So just a quick question preview. Do you guys know, is there anything in there that we would find contentious?
Well,
You had a chance to look. Or you guys old?
I'm not concerned about it. Some of the board members, I think, were just worried about having a tribal member at the table, a tribal board member, and they've made it clear it's an LLC. It's not the tribe. It's an offshoot of the tribe. And that they basically would be acting the same way that all the other board members are, and the dispute resolution would be the same. And the attorneys for both sides are trying to make it so that all the answers are yes. They're not going to have any special immunity. They would be subject to the same sort of dispute resolution. If something came up, they would be subject to the same sort of, if we're not getting along, we can ask you to leave. So I think they've resolved it all, but I guess we'll see what the other board members say. It wasn't a concern to me based on what I was hearing. Let's see, and at the WAPUTA meetings, telecom committee, they just again brought up this $377 million in unspent funds that the Department of Commerce has, but that NTIA is more frequently now talking about these as savings, and this money may go back to the federal government in a clawback provision.
Not
the unspent so far, yeah. So WAPUTA was hoping it would somehow be available. And then at the Energy Committee, there was talk about 2 different issues. There were 2 proposals that were before the board for a vote. One was to support a bill that would create a narrow carve out from the CETA carbon emissions for gas generation in an emergency. And I was really surprised that the board, that the full committee didn't want to support that. And the sense I got was that they wanted some bigger resolution to allow more gas.
Hill do you want to die on?
Yeah, that was what
How much political capital do you want to spend on this little carve?
Yeah, and then the other one was the transmission. So it just really seems like there's going to be a lot more discussions this coming session and in future sessions about reliability, about transmission, about resource adequacy. These are going to be the issues that are, and Waputa, we've been talking about this for years. So I guess this is good news, but it's kind of the canary in the coal mine. It's like we're worried about these
And
things.
this was the question I had on the Energy Committee, was the second part of what you just said, this transition coalition or not the proper
Transmission
term,
authority
that, yeah. Again, this is something that we would vote on at the Energy Committee. I don't know when that would happen. But my take on that is this is one of those things where you open the door a little bit and it could become, they take a mile of getting more authority to, this was a state oriented type of
Right.
I don't know if the governor would appoint, I don't remember the criteria. I would be opposed at this point, things could change for us to advocate for that. So when you go to that meeting to deal with that, that's my 2 cents. I don't know if Commissioner Collins has had a chance to think about or knows about it yet, but so just if that comes to a vote, I would be opposed to that. At this point in time, that could change.
I need to know.
Yes.
I need to know more.
And
about
maybe
it.
Jeff can.
Well, I have concerns about, additional state agencies just getting involved, and is it really going to be effective? And what I heard from the group was that they wanted Waputa to engage in the discussion, but they really had strong concerns about a new transmission authority and what that would mean. And I think that's the direction that staff got.
Just wanted to put it on the radar. So that Ken had a chance if he wants to catch up to speed on it.
Then during the BPA report, I found they talked about the bad water years and the additional fees that we're going to get charged to make up for the current the reduction in cash that they have a 370 million cash reserve that they want to maintain, and they're below that, so they want to build that back up again. But one of the things that Scott Wilson said that to me was interesting, they talked about the Columbia River litigation again, because the settlement agreement is no longer exists. And what Scott Wilson said was that if BPA gets an adverse ruling, it could be worse than the settlement agreement, which I thought was an interesting admission. And I realize that BPA is just, they kind of take orders from everybody about, are they going to, the previous administration said, this is the agreement, you shall comply with it. They don't really take a role in opposing or supporting something because they're really asked to execute. But the admission that, well, gee, the settlement agreement was probably better for us than what's going to happen in court. And then he was also asked, well, could the parties appeal to the federal government and get some other judge or something involved? And he said, well, yes, but that is probably a really long runway and would take a lot of time to happen. So I think that's that. So looking ahead, we've got the special meeting on Sims Way. We've got the water rates or the water rate special meeting on the 2nd. We'll have our regular board meeting on the 9th. I've got knowing it on the 10th. So answered my questions and talk about a possible meeting for broadband once we get to that item, I guess.
So one quick side note. Scott Wilson pulled me aside at the Waputa meeting and wanted to make a note of it. And this is in regard to the residential exchange program. And I think Joe listened to a WAPAG meeting and I listened to it. The Port Townsend paper was named in part of what they're working on there. So just putting it on your radar that it's actually to the good side of the ledger, it sounded like. So I don't know if you guys were aware of that or not, but he wanted to affirm to me that they're paying attention to that. So.
Yeah, it sounded like we collectively have been successful in advocating for the mill, and they've got some provisions where they'll be able to getting power from BPA after 2028.
The negotiations are still on track. My understanding from Marcus is that they're moving forward in a positive way. So I can't determine what that outcome is yet, but it's look like that would be the outcome.
And the weird thing about that too is because of BPA's rules, they can only talk about those things with the customer, which we are not in that case.
And this was only in the context of the residential exchange deal that they're trying to work on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's still a moving target, but they did, for all intent and purpose, treat the mill, they carved them out so that they're not going to be impacted by that residential exchange as much as they could have been.
Yeah.
Again, still a bit of a moving target, but they're the last DSI, direct service industry. Yeah. So they recognize that and they're giving them a carve out. That's what it amounts to at the moment.
And I think it is important just because of the size of employer that the mill is in this county, and that I think we tried to engage, and we're trying to engage for Jefferson County's benefit, the mill's benefit, and the PUD's benefit.
And
on
we
the
have a
video.
role in that still. We have a transmission wheeling agreement to
Mhm.
get the
Okay.
energy from Bonneville substation to the mill.
Okay, and that's the end of my report. So back to the agenda.
Consent.
Consent. So we have a consent agenda. Do we have anything we need to take off, or can we move it?
Motion to approve the consent agenda is presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye, that's approved. Unfinished business, clean energy implementation plan. Gene, I'm guessing this is one we're going to keep hearing occasionally for a while now.
Quite a while.
This is one that's not going away.
No, it didn't. Of course it didn't. Can you let me share? Do I have to share? There it goes. Okay. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So for tonight's presentation, we are going to go over our targets and energy efficiency measures. There are other targets involved with this, but efficiency is what we're leaning hard on. So we're going to spend more time on that. We'll define the statute. We'll talk about our own footprint. In order to become more energy efficient as an organization, we need to understand how we use energy. We'll talk about the proposed measures and the programs where we have identified funding sources and how they'll help us reach our targets, as well as some additional grant funds that we would like to apply for. But programs that would be supported by grant funds, we are not going to include in our CEIP just because that funding is not guaranteed.
It's speculative.
Yes, exactly. So the hope at the end of this CEIP is to have a roadmap in place so that as funding becomes available over the next 4 years, we're ready with either shovel-ready jobs or at least ready to submit an application for funding.
So this whole program, I got to get the acronym, the Clean Energy Implementation Plan. It comes with requirements, but there's also actually money. This is one of those few times where the state is requiring us to do stuff, but they also have money to fund things.
They do have money.
Okay.
Yes. So we'll start at the beginning. So 2019 Senate Bill 5116, the Clean Energy Transformation Act, commits Washington to electricity supply free of greenhouse gas by 2045. That feeds down into RCW 19405.040, which goes over the greenhouse neutrality. We have to reach that by January 1, 2030.
And neutrality, meaning that if there are carbon emissions, we have a way to
We have
offset
to
them.
offset those. Yeah.
Okay.
And that could be done through renewables, solar, our credits. We can offset them with credits. So there's all kinds of things that we'll have to talk about as an organization. Brings us down to 19405.060, which is the Clean Energy Implementation Plan. That sets the compliance criteria and incremental cost of compliance that goes into the credits and what we have to pay to be neutral. Specific targets for energy efficiency, demand response, and renewable energy must be set. How those targets are going to help us meet that standard under 19405.040 must be clear in the plan.
So for example, if you're talking about energy efficiency, if we're able to have a program where somebody's home is made more efficient through insulation, or they've gone from an electric resistance heat source to a heat pump, the assumption is we're using less energy. So that's helping to reduce our carbon emissions.
It is reducing that, and it's also reducing a vulnerability too. And we'll talk about that in more detail as we get down.
Okay.
And the last RCW 19405-120, that's when we're going to talk, the last of it that we're going to talk about, that is energy assistance for low income households. This is what we are being audited on right now. It's our 120 report. It's our, every 2 years we file that. And that says how JPUD is going to mitigate the cost for vulnerable populations of the energy transition. So those demand projects, they're going to cause cost.
And just out of curiosity, we started that whole low income assistance program before anybody made us do it.
Absolutely.
Did that help? Has that helped us be more for these kinds of requirements?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It has put us in a good position. And it's also given us better communication with our customers. We're more aware of what's going on.
Okay.
So, moving on, we'll do a quick review of the vulnerability analysis. So remember, from a statutory perspective, we don't have any census tracts in our area that contain vulnerable populations. That could hurt us when it comes to that grant funding, which we've talked about before. The Department of Health has designated highly impacted communities as those ranking a 9 or a 10 on the Washington State Environmental Health Disparities Map. However, we didn't identify any vulnerable populations based on our environment, but we did identify some vulnerable populations based on age. Over 65 percentage of a population with a disability. We have a lot. Our housing stock is a huge issue, which is why we are focusing in so hard on energy efficiency this go round.
And anybody interested in what Gene's talking about in terms of why we weren't scored differently on vulnerable populations should go back to the November 4th board meeting when you gave a very detailed analysis of that and had the score sheets and everything. Mm-hmm. So if you want to know more, go back and watch the video on that.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes. We have a lot of unemployment in our county. Our median income for a single person in Jefferson County is $68,812. And the federal poverty level is $15,650. So what that means when it comes to JPUD, our low income programs for our rate reduction use that bottom number, the federal poverty level, 15,650. So 150% of that for a single person gets you onto our rate reduction program. For our United Good Neighbors funding, our UGN utility assistance, that uses AMI, 80% of AMI or 200% of poverty level, whichever is greater. So that breakdown, you meet that at AMI up to 5 persons in the household. After that, we switch to 200% of FPL. So that makes 80% AMI. Most of these programs that we're going to be talking about, single folks would qualify if making $55,050 a year. We have a lot of children living in poverty, single parent households, and no health insurance. And all of these things, these vulnerabilities lead to premature death. So how we can affect that as a utility is with energy efficiency measures and addressing the housing stock. So Kyle did a very good job of our own footprint. It's, as you would expect, most of our usage comes from within fleet operations. Yes, we could talk about some electrification of the fleet, but I think that is a conversation for further down the road once we've done something about the lack of infrastructure for charging electric vehicles. So Any questions so far?
I just would throw out there that AMI reduced some of our miles that we have to drive to maintain our operations.
Yes, it did.
I guess maybe one quick question on the scoring on the grant. Does us having the RESP money available, is that a deterrent for us scoring wise? Because we have another pot of money to help with some of these type of things that go into conservation. How do they score that exactly?
I think it depends on the grant and the money. RESP can actually be used with some of these other programs as long as you're not co-mingling federal and state funds. So they can use like BPA funds for their,
Energy efficiency.
yeah. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we get.
I just
further.
wondered if our access and ability to utilize some of these things like that, that's another one, if that hurts us at the end of the day for getting this grant. Because they're going to say you have access to these other pots of money too. Does that hurt us or help us? But
I think it really does depend on the grant. I think it helps us in that we are set up to offer broader programs. And again, we'll talk about braiding and stacking funds later, how that's going to work. But all the different pots of money it's going to take a lot of different pots of money to meet this problem. So,
Gene, so the various pots of money, what's available to help people convert from wood burning, oil, propane?
Let me jump in.
You may jump in.
So, we have the year grants, which we
Yes.
deployed last year. That's very much weighted towards doing fuel switching this
Yes.
time around. They just.
I'm sorry, which grant was that?
Year grant.
here.
It's the home electrification appliance rebates.
Mhm.
Okay.
Through that one this year, they are weighting it more towards fuel switching in
Yes.
the RFA. So like that's something we will be sensitive to when we apply for it. The statewide program, which won't flow through us, is also earmarked in the same way, and those are the Inflation Act funds that are coming. So those will help. We should be able to provide some assistance there. It just gets tricky with the RESP, like those funds can't commingle.
Sorry, you can't commingle the RESP loan with.
Federal Inflation Act dollars cannot touch our RESP dollars. However, BPA money can.
Okay.
So we have a very difficult landscape to navigate with all these different things going on. But definitely here grants are available for electrification. The statewide program is. Potentially our loans could be used for that if it's not touching those other monies. And I assume there will be other grant opportunities too through the state.
I guess I see that. They don't want you to use a federal grant to pay off a federal loan or something. Okay, that makes sense.
So that's a real issue in the wintertime here when you have the inversion layer and those particles get trapped. Otherwise, quality of air here is wonderful, but
that reminds me also there's ORCA, which is the Olympic Regional Clean Air Agency. They do have some incentives that again can be layered with ours, and they're very much designed to deal with wood smoke and converting to heat pumps. I actually have a letter right now that they'd like us to sign, and I'll get that over to Joe so we can use our same income verification to help people access those rebates.
thank you for the information.
And we're going to talk more about that later in the presentation too, but maybe we can talk less now. So, our energy efficiency target, we think that we can capture just over 5,600 megawatt hours of savings through energy efficiency over the next CEIP planning period. So that's through the end of 2029. Our staff work with customers and contractors to counsel them on what measures will be most beneficial for them and what funding sources are available to them. We've done this by encouraging a strong relationship between our energy efficiency and customer service program specialists who work together to make sure customers of all income levels can access programs and understand how they work. So that's a program that is requiring some streamlining, and we're working on that right now. We talked a little bit about braiding funds for maximum impact, keeping standard efficiency measures available for the general public, and focused on delivering the most effective measures available from BPA implementation manual to our region. As BPA rebates rarely cover the full cost of upgrades, RESP functions as a bridge to affordability that can work together.
And have we rolled out the REST program loan yet, or are we still developing
The
that?
government shutdown delayed us.
Kind of paused us a little bit. Okay.
We're getting there
Okay.
soon, I hope. So we talked a bit about what RESP can do and the commingling of funds. What is closest to my heart, and it's no secret, is making a maximum impact for vulnerable populations. We need to focus on the housing stock to address core issues with energy efficiency in Jefferson County. In many cases, EEI rebates, they cover the equipment upgrades. They are often half measures. When the envelope of a building is leaking, it's like having a window you cannot close.
Putting a heat pump in a tent.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is generally due to inadequate insulation, windows, and weather stripping.
Yeah.
Much of this work requires access to energy auditors and expensive equipment, which any of you who have been involved with the low income subcommittee have heard me gripe about this for a decade.
Yeah.
So Kyle and I are working with State Commerce to bring energy auditor training and certification testing to the Olympic Peninsula.
Great.
So JPUD is going to host the training. We're going to round up the contractors for enrollment. Kyle's working with his counterpart in Port Angeles to see if we can get a larger batch of contractors. And Kyle has agreed to help proctor those certification tests after the training so that Commerce can get twice as many contractors certified.
I wonder if it would be worth, Kyle, one of you reaching out to the EDC staff, just letting them know what you're doing. Because again, this is like small businesses probably trying to build up their capacity, just to let them know what you're doing. And who knows, they might want to be involved, or they might see some overlap of benefit that together we could do a little more than just by ourselves.
Yeah. And we met with Commerce last week, and they're also working on a scholarship fund. They're not sure how it's going to work, but it would help pay contractors for the lost work during the 2-week training. So amazing things coming. We already talked about additional programs to consider. There will be another round of HERE funding. When does that open?
It's open now and it's due in February.
Okay.
And what's the funding source for that? Is that state money?
Yeah, CETA taxes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Climate Commitment Act money.
Okay.
At the pump.
Yep. So and I'm going to have Kyle talk for a second here, because during that last round of HERE, we saw a lot. And so we're looking at bringing in that second round of funding for about $1.5 million if we think we can get it.
Yeah, I mean, we've built the apparatus and it's working as far as getting heat pumps into homes. The low income weatherization will be funded in a different way, but I really feel that we can ask for more. And you know, being boots on the ground for that, I really kind of saw the need. There's a ton of people out there that are just deciding between paying their bill or
exactly.
You know, and I also want to look at like how we prioritize who is served. The last time we had a limited amount of time to get these funds out the door, just kind of based on their lack of staff, and I was hired to run it. This time we have more time. So I want to focus on the most burdened and work our way up rather than just throw open the doors and say 80% AMI, great. I want to look a little bit more closely at the needs, and especially if people are coming in for heat assistance and that kind of stuff, you can tell that they're a little more desperate than most. Like,
Yeah.
let's try and serve those households.
Well, I appreciate what you guys are doing because we've had this huge need, and building an effective energy efficiency program that actually reaches your customers and is it takes a lot of work, and it's like relationships and the contractors. So thank you for what you're doing and keep it up, because I think it's going to take a while to really, make a huge impact, which is what we need.
It will, but we need to go and fix the insulation and get them new equipment. We need to do all of the above. Low income weatherization, we can use our no cost allowances to fund the retrofits. I mean, if we sell them, there's all kinds of ideas.
Okay. That's the end of the presentation?
Yeah.
Any questions from commissioners? I guess I'm curious, next steps, when are we going to see something
Next
again?
steps at the next board meeting, I am hoping that you will have a completed report with all of our targets to look at and consider. And then I'm going to have to ride the coattails of one of the special meetings for a vote on them.
And then this goes back to the state.
And then
this
it goes
report.
back to the
And
state. I have to file it by the 1st.
And this is the 1st of January. So, and this is something we'll see every year, probably.
We will be bringing it up to the board every year and giving you updates, and I'm sure we'll change some of our goals.
All right. Well, thank you for giving this to us in pieces. I think it helps us understand it. And when it's time to adopt, it's a lot easier to get it passed. Okay. Next, are we into new business? Where are we at?
Yeah.
New business, interlocal agreement, Jefferson County EV charging stations.
Okay, so I think I'm going to take this one. This is an unusual way to basically do electric service. So normally we would just do have an easement with the property owner and have a tenant agreement understanding. But the county chose this vehicle to allow us to serve an electric vehicle charging station on their property. The electric vehicle station is a third party that we're going to be billing on the county's property. So that's why we brought this ILA before you from the county to allow that electric service for the electric vehicle charger to go forward.
Okay. And what I saw with this was there's been groups trying for years and years to get more electrical vehicle charging into the county. We got one down by the information center, the welcome center in Port Townsend. There's one there now. And then this was going to be something that was going to be up at the community center in Uptown. And for various reasons, it was not a go there. There was historic property stuff. Sounds like there was service stuff from us, whatever. Parking's at a premium there too. So there was all sorts of problems with it. So then they bounced to the Tri-Area Community Center by Chimacum School. And that this is basically giving us an easement on county land for our equipment.
It's for our equipment and to serve a third party tenant on that.
And it's providing an easement on county land. The county's giving us an easement, a utility easement.
That's right.
Is what I saw as the bottom line for us. There was a bunch of stuff between the vendor paying the county per kilowatt hour, blah, 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 but I don't see that as affecting us.
No.
So. Any questions?
Yeah, I had a couple. I've already gotten questions from the public about this, and I know I'll get some more. So I kind of narrowed it down to, I think 3 or 4 here. So what's the PUD energy rate to the EVCS? Is there a set rate? Is this going to be a special rate for this charger? I mean, that was the first question I got.
We do not have a EV rate. This is our normal tariff for a commercial customer.
All right. And then, then this is something I kind of saw too, is the equipment purchased payment directly to the PUD or a pass through from the county on whatever we're supplying, does that the county pay us, or or does the other entity pay us directly on the infrastructure that we're going to put in? How's that transaction happen?
So I don't know exactly what size service this the county currently has, but assuming it's a general service, they're going to be paying approximately 12 cents a kilowatt hour and reselling it for something a lot higher.
But Dan, you're talking about like the transformer and any additional
Yeah.
equipment that's needed.
Yeah, do we get paid directly, or does the county get billed, and then what's the process?
This is just like every other electric service. So if you're building a home and you need electric service, then we construct electric infrastructure at cost and bill the property owner for that. Same thing's going down here.
And this is in this case, the vendor, I think, is the one paying for the
It's
infrastructure.
not our gig. It
Not
could
our-
be the county, it could be the vendor. It's not.
I think-
we show up and provide electric service, and we have that infrastructure paid for before we install it.
So Dan, if
That basically is the answer. I think whoever I got asked, that's what they're looking for.
we're made whole,
Yeah, we're made whole.
and it's funded by the state
because
grant.
the question revolved around, are we subsidizing something?
Right. No.
So I just want to make sure that we're clear that we're not subsidizing, that we are going to be made whole. Good term to use there. So
Okay.
and then what was the other one? I had one other I got asked about this. So again, is there a revenue estimate as to doing these type of projects? You mentioned the 12 cents a kilowatt hour. So do we make money on these types of things, or is this just a straight pass-through type of a deal on the energy cost? I mean, I guess I'm not exactly sure what the question was to me, but that was kind of, are we making money on this is the short type of answer.
Anytime there's more volume that's being used in our system, there's incrementally a contribution from that customer that covers our costs. And then we reassess what our costs are because we're a nonprofit organization. So it might cost a very subtle reallocation of costs when we do our next rate study. But basically, no, we're not making money.
Well, I mean, we're buying power at 4 cents and we're selling it at 12 cents, and they're paying for the equipment. So
we're buying power from Bonneville at 4 cents, and then we have distribution and transmission costs that we layer on top of that, and then we come up with a cost of service of 11 cents. That's what they're consuming it at.
Right.
And I didn't get too deep into the weeds, but I think part of this, and it may have been an EV customer wondering what their final cost is going to be. They're trying to get a gauge.
Much higher than 12 cents.
Yeah. The PUD sticking it to EV,
It's not us sticking it to
I know.
it.
I think that may have been the context. I didn't get that deep in the weeds about it.
Yeah. And Joe, you actually shared with me some of the rates that are being charged by these folks.
That's right.
The vendors.
I mean, just from my perspective, I looked at Jefferson County. I first came to Jefferson County because of the electric vehicle program that was being run at Port Townsend High School. I mean, we have a long, rich history of promoting vehicle electrification, and frankly, it's a little bit embarrassing to me that these private vendors are charging 60 cents a kilowatt hour to charge up. I mean, that's significantly higher than what gas costs if it was an internal combustion engine. So it would be nice at some point in time if we could have a more competitive landscape for electric vehicle charging in our community that values that kind of transportation, but we're not there yet.
And go ahead.
I want to move that Board of Commissioners approve the interlocal agreement between Jefferson County and Jefferson PUD.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second for that. Oops, I got the wrong agenda. Hang on. Sorry. For basically to authorize the board to sign the interlocal. So we're going to be signing it, not you? Okay, so don't leave before we sign. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. And I did get an email response from Cindy Jane on the Climate Action Committee that she thought that EVCS was charging people about 59 cents a kilowatt hour. So might depend on whether you have the type 2 charger or the type 3, but yeah. Okay, next one is the ILA for NOAANET.
Yeah, so this one is mine. Are you guys hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
We got double microphone here, so they wanted to make sure I was heard. So this is a new interlocal agreement with NOAANET. So this one will supersede anything else that we've had before. And thanks to Will and Joe and Joel on this, that we've simplified it. So you have that. Basically, it's a one pager for us to have the umbrella for any future services for both us and NOAANET going forward. So this is telecommunications, broadband support, operations types of things. So that's what we're looking for today, is to move this forward and get us a new interlocal agreement in place.
Okay. And I just appreciate the work that you're doing, Curtis, on this. And when Kevin was still with us, I would hear that we didn't have any current agreements with NOAANET. So this is kind of starting with a foundation of a basic agreement. And then as I see it, it gives us the opportunity to sell them services, for them to sell us services in the continuation of our mission.
Correct.
Okay.
Does this include the second path off of the peninsula?
So the second path off of the peninsula is a separate service order. So all of this ILA is just basically the governing, saying that we're going to have services with them, services with us, and it's just broadband telecommunication services. Underneath that, we will have additional orders that come in that'll be service orders that we will do. So like the redundant path, or maybe it's network monitoring, or things of that sort is what we look at for the future.
Okay, thank you.
Ken was asking for an update. You might as well give it to him on that.
Sure. So the update on the redundant path is that we're waiting for some hardware to arrive for NOAANET that was ordered in September. So we're still waiting. Today I got an update that they said that it should be another 3 weeks before that arrives.
Okay.
So once
Thank
that's
you.
completed, then
Thank you.
it'll go into play.
So I know we ran into some issues with NOAANET on some fees we were being charged before. Does this supplant that agreement? Is this completely new, or is this partially new? I mean, just a little clarification on this $80,000. I know we were paying them, maybe it's apples and oranges. I can't remember what was it, a knock agreement or maybe something else. I don't remember.
Yeah, so there's multiples that have gone out in the previous, and I can't give you all the details on that. I'm sure that Will can provide some more color around that, but essentially this is to just have a new interlocal agreement that's put into place, so that any other contracts, service orders, anything that we do in the future will all operate underneath this new one.
And then quick follow-up. So does this go towards the broadband division as far as the amount we're paying here? Does this get split between electric and broadband? How will this fee be going into the budget?
Depends on the purpose.
Okay.
So this is just kind of like an estimate of services that.
I think most of the services that we're contemplating under this are broadband related, but there could be a water or an electric need that would be sourced. I can't imagine what that is off the top of my head, but it's not prescriptive about which fund it's charging. It's just setting up a framework to have an agreement with NOAANET.
To me, this says that we want to work together, is by the bottom line. And then as each opportunity comes up, will you guys be telling us kind of, hey, we just worked out this new deal, we're going to be doing this thing with NOAANET? Or
Yep.
I think that's kind of what the board's looking for. Is
We will, and the financial representation that's in there is an estimated cost based off of some monitoring network services that we've been looking for.
Best guess of what we might do with them, but
Correct.
You'll keep us posted as that relationship evolves.
Correct.
Okay.
So I move that the Board of Commissioners authorize the general manager to sign the interlocal cooperative agreement with NOAANET as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the NOAANET agreement. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. That one's done. Good job, guys. It's taken a lot of work to get there. Now we have a license agreement pole attachment.
So Jefferson PUD somewhat unusually does not have a pole attachment agreement with Quest or CenturyLink or Lumen or whoever they are doing business as today. And we have negotiated in good faith to come to an agreement, and there's been a number of back and forths, but CenturyLink actually hasn't responded to the last back and forth since January. That we were very close on terms of that agreement. And so Joel and I discussed this, and we're I believe we're close enough that we would just like to go ahead and have the board approve this and present it to CenturyLink as our license agreement terms for going forward
Okay.
with them attaching to our polls.
So as I look at this agreement, there's a lot of blanks, in the values that need to be inserted, and I just saw some typos like in the page numbers. The table of contents page numbers need to be run through again to make sure like fees and charges is not on page 8. It's on like the next page, just stuff like that. But so to me, it's like the agreement's not done. And this is kind of a Joel question. Are we authorizing the general manager to take this draft of an agreement and negotiate it with CenturyLink and bring it back to us, or what are we doing here? Because it's not a done thing. It's kind of forum.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this and I appreciate the brevity in this because this has a long and sordid past.
Mhm.
And really, Joe's thinking on it was, well, we pretty much decided all the terms and conditions on this, and we have. There were a couple minor requests by CenturyLink that we conceded on a few we won't, and then they went radio silent per usual. I mean, we're going on a year now. And the thought is, they continue to occupy our polls. I view that as a trespass.
Mhm.
And so I would recommend that you authorize the general manager to forward the document. We can clean it up, obviously, but to CenturyLink, and that there's no more negotiations authorized. And to the extent there's any changes, he's authorized to make any minor changes that are consistent with the form and the terms and conditions that are before you. And that way we're done. I mean, we pretty much are done. So any minor changes would not be material at all, to my view. If anything is material, we will come back to you.
Okay. And for example, on page 4, it says licensee means blank. It's authorized successors and assigns. So I don't know if that's us or if that's CenturyLink, but presumably if we're going to send them something, sign here, we're going to fill in the blanks on it before we send it to them.
Well, they can put whatever they want to put as their doing business name
Okay.
at that point in time.
Yeah, we don't know the form. I mean, we call them Lumen now under this agreement. They refer to themselves as Quest. They could go back all the way to, whatever they were previously, US West. I'm sorry. So
Right.
we don't know, that's their corporate stuff.
Okay. And I thought there were some blanks for like values. Proposed loading data, vertical weight, bear equals blank. This is on page 50. Looks like some engineering stuff. Permits, engineer. I don't know.
That's how they request poll attachments. So that's data that they
Oh,
need to
that's like an
provide.
application
That's
form.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the
Yeah,
blanks.
we've never had an application form for them before.
Okay.
Which is
And just for further clarification, the PUD has a poll attachment agreement with CenturyLink for its polls. They just don't have one on ours.
Okay, and I'll hit you with one more. Appendix A, fees and charges. The fees stated in this section shall remain in effect through blank. And then it's got non-recurring fees, a permit application fee of blank for 20 polls. This is on page 41. So, I appreciate us wanting to take a strong position with these guys, but I just want us to send a document that's baked. I'll stop there.
Yeah, mine's more of a statement than any questions. I mean, other than this is long overdue. I mean, in my eyes, our customers are subsidizing private industry and have been for a long, long time. Our poll rates were never been what they should have been. And the fact that we don't even have a contract with some of these entities, yet we have one with them that we have, I can't believe we're at this point.
Well, hopefully we're getting better.
Well, they pay us. You have to understand, they do pay us don't they, Mike?
They have not paid their 2024 invoice, partially because of this not having an agreement. not being notified of rate increases last year.
So I'll move that the board authorize the general manager to sign the pole attachment license agreement with Quest Corporation or whoever they call themselves these days as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion and a second. And I guess last point of discussion or one question before the vote. Under Appendix A, annual pole attachment fees, it says effective January 1st, 2023, the rate is $22.45. Is that, and then there's a 5% escalator. Okay, so that's what we want that to say too?
With the 5% for current rates, yeah.
Right, okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Joe, and we look
Thanks,
forward
commissioners.
how that goes. Yeah, thank you too, Joel.
Good luck.
Well, we're playing nice in the sandbox. They need to also.
Okay, the next one is a wheeling agreement. So I got a call from representatives of the mill that indicated that our transmission wheeling agreement was expiring a week later. So that was, in the startup of the first 90 days, that was one of those Easter eggs that I was presented with. So it turns out that the wheeling agreement that Jefferson PUD has with the mill hasn't been changed since 2013, rate wise, or I think the contract itself is refreshed. It's on a 5-year term, but the rates haven't changed since 2013. So there wasn't clarity about how the rates were developed. So I came up with a proposal with Mike. Mike identified the transmission costs. I identified the percentage of the transmission utilization that the mill uses relative to our other customers' use of the transmission, and came up with an allocation factor. Presented that to the mill representatives, and they also went radio silent for about 4 weeks. Went ahead and put it on the agenda, feeling that I had given them ample opportunity to give feedback. They did set up a meeting on Monday, so after it already made the agenda. So this is an opportunity for the commissioners to review. We could pass it, but I think giving them another round of feedback and then bringing this back to the commission in the December meeting is what my recommendation would be.
Okay. Did you say you met with them yesterday?
Yes.
And
well,
how,
it was yesterday. Yeah, Monday. Yeah.
and did that generally go okay, or they say they're still reviewing it, or?
I expect a timely review, but this expired in October, so
yeah,
they can, if they note some flaw or challenge that they want to bring up in the methodology, we may revisit it. If they don't, then and they don't get back to me in a timely manner,
okay.
I think we'll just proceed.
Well, it seems like small potatoes compared to their biggest concern we heard was just keep their power on. That was like $1 million a day. So it's like that seemed like a bigger concern than this.
Yeah, it is a significant rate increase. This is the incumbent fee has been $4,100 a month.
Yeah,
and this is $78.82 a month. So
yeah,
but you're right. In the
it's a small amount compared to the other things.
One quick question on the contract here is, again, I'm not familiar with PT paper. I've never taken the tour or met the tour. Well, it's on the list of how many things do I get to do and what have I got the time for? I think Joe can relate to that. Is Kevin Scott still with the mill? I mean, here's the contact. I'm not so sure he's still.
Is it in the document itself?
Next to the last page of the document for PT paper, it has Kevin Scott listed. I don't know if he's still with them or not. So just to make sure you're going after the right people. So
the mill has had this contract, as I said, for about 4 weeks. So if they want to update a contact information, they can. I haven't kept track of who the
name for the signature page.
So you're not asking for approval. I guess my suggestion would be, is the board okay with this going on consent agenda for the next meeting?
And yeah, if the general manager's happy, I'm fine with consent.
And staff will make any changes to contacts or anything else.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, you have consensus.
Thank you.
All right, next one.
Let's see, the next one is for Will.
The bid authorization for the Port Townsend Business Fiber Project.
Bring on down the microphone.
And you're cutting into your own time, so that
I'm gonna be quick. 1 second, because I am going to share my screen once I learn how to operate my computer. Okay. So the Port Townsend Business Project is it's a loan that we received from the Public Works Board to build fiber to businesses in the Port Townsend area, the greater Port Townsend area. We're building to businesses only. It's about 40 miles of fiber. Now let me get to the screen sharing part. There we go. Okay.
I was curious what the colors meant.
The colors are for different counts of fiber.
Okay.
Or the different lines on there. So we're breaking it up into two areas, Glen Cove going up Sims Way and then downtown out to the fort. That'll be the two business areas. This project, the total project is $2 million. We have a cash match that was required. And then the loan funding, it's a 0.43% interest rate over 20 years. We identified about 375 businesses. Our goal is to connect over 200. To date, we have about 100 signups. We have not been marketing this one for a while because we did not know when we were going to begin. So this is the first step, beginning the process.
And then you got in here that there's a $1,200 construction fee. So is that basically a business wants to connect to, or it's all done, a business wants to connect to the fiber, they would need to pay $1,200 to have the fiber run into their business?
Yep.
Okay. And
that was a payment plan.
And can that, yeah, was my question too. Can that be paid over time, and how would that work?
Same as the $750 charge for our grant areas, 36 months.
36 months. Okay.
Yep.
Other
That
questions?
would ultimately generate about $250,000 if you get 200 businesses to sign up.
Yeah, I think it was 167 will cover our cash match if we can get 167 businesses.
Okay.
So I had two questions, and these are oldies but goodies. So, does this loan cover all of the PUD costs to do the work involved? I know we have a match, so we obviously have some skin in the game, but is this whatever work we're going to do to hook people up? I don't exactly know what exactly we're doing because there's the $1,200 fee. So it's recovery on cost. The loan's going to cost a certain amount of debt repayment and that sort of thing. And just the timing, are we going to get customers quick enough to repay the loan? Is the money going to, the funds going to be there? I mean, how much is the PUD putting out there that, to recover? I mean,
Yeah, so the loan is paid annually, and when we fully expended all the funds, which we haven't done yet, then we'll pay the maximum amount of the yearly loan payment, and it's about $46,000 a year. I think that will be paid by 46 subscribers. So as long as we have more, we already have 100 registered, so we think we'll be able to cover that long term. That's just the loan payment. That's not also the cost of operating.
So I guess, are we going to deploy it in a way that we're going to keep up with revenues going to meet cost?
Correct.
Whether it's construction or capital cost or the cost of the loan.
The loan covers all of the capital costs, and then the ongoing operating costs and the loan payment is covered by the monthly revenue.
So we will be interested in the cash flow of the broadband side of things.
And we can do updates on that at another time. What I'm seeking now is authorization for the general manager to allow us to go out to bid. Ken.
And I move that the board authorize the general manager to issue bid documents for the construction of the Port Townsend Business Fiber Project construction as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? When would the construction occur if we get some responsive bids?
Construction would begin in March, late February or March.
And how long do we think it would take?
It's a small project, so we anticipate it would be done in July.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Less than a year. Cool. All right. Motion and a second. All in favor of approving issuing the bid documents, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Cool. All right. Broadband rates.
Okay. Everyone's
Ding, 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 ding,
favorite
ding.
topic. Just a glutton for punishment, I am.
My dunce cap.
Yeah.
And I guess before we leave, I'm hoping that I think we're going to need a special meeting on this one. So I hope we can take time to pick a date before in a time that
Sure.
works. I don't think sliding this into the December meeting is going to work.
Well, I'll start with the fact that none of this, what we're proposing here, is essential. These are not changes we have to have.
Okay.
The goal of this was to clean some things up and to offer a little bit better competitive rates for transport as that was requested. And staff looked internally at what we can do and sharpened our pencil, looked at more options, and came up with some discounts for those transports. So that's what we want to bring forward. The time crunch, though, let me just hit the button for the start from current slide.
So from staff's perspective, hey, the current rates we have could work, but you think this isn't, is more responsive to concerns we have.
We do, yeah. And just some little things that we wanted to clean up, like the name of the low income program and setting it up as an actual rate instead of a discount makes it cleaner for our tracking and reporting, things like that. We are going to be, as we're moving into downtown and into the business area, we're having a number of multi-tenant units. We put forward a multi-tenant product. Leo has had some questions about that. We're going to discuss those internally, and that's something we can talk about at the next meeting. But again, these are all nice to haves. Our most popular products, the ones that we sell the most, we're not touching. No changes to those. Transport has been the big controversial topic for years now. In June, we passed, I think we passed it in March, increases in a change of the tiering of the transport rates. For those rates went into effect for any new sales, for existing sales, for current customers. The rates didn't go in effect till January 1st. So that's why we wanted to bring back an opportunity for some lower costs before that rate would go in, those changes would go into effect. So
have we had any new transport customers since we changed the rates?
I'm trying to think. We've had requests for quotes. I don't believe we've had any finalization.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess if I ever ask for info you can't share, don't share it. But
I can answer yes or no on that,
okay.
But I can't answer specifics. Yeah. So on the left is the currently approved rates, and then 2026 revisions. We also, just cleaning up our terminology, wanted to change this to be, this is our enterprise package. These are what we sell to IT professionals, larger businesses, institutions. So we have our residential rates, we have our small business rates, and then we have our enterprise connections, and that's what these are.
So this is for the ability for an ISP to utilize our network to move whatever through it. Is that how this?
Or a government or anybody, yeah. So the ISP, purchases our wholesale PON. That's what the majority of we have for our qualified ISPs purchase from us and connect to customers over our network. But these are another way to. That's a shared connection. So it's over our PON fiber. You don't get the dedicated bandwidth. You get kind of the best effort, and we make we provision it as such so that you get mostly what you pay for. But if there's times where there's too much traffic, you won't see the full bandwidth.
I'm trying to differentiate the difference between transport and transit. So
I'll get to that just now. So transport has no internet included. Transit has a path back out to the internet. That's the differentiation between those two products. We've had a lot of requests recently for multi-year discounts via contract for those quotes that we've received, and we thought it best to just codify that and have the board approve it going forward. We do not want to offer multi-year discounts for PON. This would just be for the transport and transit connections. Okay. And the other big change is we just kind of cleaned house a little bit and regrouped some things. And instead of having these different categories, we just put the following products into other items. And instead of equipment return charge, because we don't want to charge you if you return the equipment, we called it a non-return charge. So a simple housekeeping. Again, none of this is essential. It's just cleaning up our products and services. And all of the policies that are included just are sort of the explainers for these different items. And I'm not going to go over the policies tonight, being that we have just.
And you don't want any action tonight.
I'm not looking for any action tonight, just to introduce all these topics. Okay. So that's it for the main body of what we're proposing.
So I only have one more question, and that is, did we use a consultant to determine these changes, or did we do that all in-house? That's the only other question.
We did it all in-house, but we based most of it again on the rate study we did with Doug Dawson. We just felt we could be more competitive, and we did some asking around about private rates.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take some public comment if staff is done.
So obviously I sent you guys the email. So, because my pawn customers are right now in the mix with my transport customers, which is not how other PUDs and open access network do that. I sent you guys an example of what it would cost for me to have 10 gigabit customers on the pawn network. Plus, so that's worked out to like $540 a month. Then I have to pay for gigabit transport, which was another $500. So it cost me $104 a month just to get the internet that I have to pay you guys just to get my internet to the customer. That doesn't include the cost of the internet cost me, support, billing. So in the end, right, if somebody says, okay, calls me up and says, come January 1st, how much is it going to cost me to get my internet through you? Is compared to the PUD. Well, I'm going to have to charge you $125 a month. Well, the PD only charges $75 a month. How is that being competitive? How are you making that a competitive market? Other PUDs don't charge for the interconnection between the ISP and the PUD, right? So they can provide service. Either do other large businesses like Astound, Ziply. They don't charge for that either. Their whole money that they make is that $54 or $60 per customer that I'm paying them to deliver to the house. So I don't see how that is considered being competitive. I mean, when I have to literally, the ISP has to pay, that much money. I mean, that's more money than you guys even charge retail. And that's for wholesale service. So one of Will's examples was, well, you can always buy internet from us. Well, okay, now you're forcing me to buy service from you. Okay, and that service is going to cost me the same amount as if I was going to purchase transport. The gigabit's $500 a month. So I'm still in the same boat, right? Still paying you way more than what it would cost a customer to go directly to you. And then I also lose visibility. So when a customer calls and says, hey, why is my internet not working? Is there a problem? I have no actual troubleshooting ability. And the last thing the customer is going to want is, well, I have no idea if your internet's working or not. Other PUD, I have no tools. Other PUDs, other providers, they provide the ability to at least go in and troubleshoot your customer. I had a customer just yesterday. I went in the crew system. It gets that PUD because he called up. I went in, looked at his connection. Kellic says dying gas. But I said, go plug your KPUD unit back into the wall in the power outlet. Plugged it back in. Oh, my internet's working again.
Okay, you're at a little over 3 minutes.
So.
Anything else to add? Knowing that we're not going to take action.
Right, I know. So, but I mean, so that's just some examples. I mean, you're not making it competitive.
Okay. Any staff response? Well, you don't have to. Any response?
No, we don't believe that it's going to result in any great additional charges. I don't want to discuss private business of our customers, but
right.
We don't believe that there's been any substantial extra cost. We've discussed, and I responded to Mr. Boyd's email that he's able to use his transport connections to bundle his pond data in such a way that there's no extra charge for the pond. And I think that's fantastic. Other ISPs buy metered data that results in very little extra charge per pond. But again, I'm not going to disclose those.
Okay.
in public meeting.
So I'm going to bring it back to commissioner discussion here. So staff saying we could literally do nothing. As I read through this stuff, it's complicated and it's hard for me to fully understand. And knowing we're talking apples to apples, when I do Google searches, I find King 10 gig transport rates quoted as 2,000 to 4,000 a month. So if we're at 1,750 a month, it's like, okay, we're less than that. But I realize it's complicated because of the way some of these things are wired and what Leo, for example, thought the future rates and future reality would be. So what's our desire here? Do we want to hold a special meeting and give some more time to understand and discuss this, or what do we want to do? Knowing that the new rates currently by our action go into effect January 1. And Joe?
If staff could clarify, my understanding is these are all reductions and clarifications. So is that correct?
Yep.
So if we
take to decide, the longer it takes to implement.
So if we take action, we're making it some better. Okay. We may not be fully responsive to the concerns that are being raised. Okay. Can you keep it short because we're kind of at time and I want to go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so actually it doesn't change anything because the rates that I have an issue with don't go into effect till January 1st.
So you're saying this doesn't help you?
Huh?
You're saying these proposed changes don't help you?
No.
Okay.
Not at this time.
Okay. So board, what would you?
So it sounds like if there's other issues that we are going to come up against on January 1, that's up to staff to make a recommendation whether they believe that to be the case or not. Because that's what I just heard was whatever's going to happen is going to happen after January 1. So
on January 1, these rates go into effect to existing customers.
Right, which I pay $150 a month now, which goes up to what, $2,000 a month or whatever.
$1,750 a month.
So I'm not opposed to a meeting if staff and general counsel think that it's something that we need to iron out. But if it's not something that we're going to change, then I don't know that we need another meeting for that purpose. But does that make sense?
Joel wants to chime in.
Joel.
Hi, I just want, I guess I'm a little, because you're having this back and forth with one of our customers. I mean, this is an overall rate change. I just want to clarify for the record here that we are not in the business of setting particular rates for particular individual customers. And, I'll leave it to you all to decide whether you need additional time to review these, but I just wanted to make that clear.
Right. No, it's not an individual rate for an individual customer, but it's a customer who falls into a rate class who has concerns.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
The other concern is we were trying to give enough time for customer service to implement these changes in the system. So if we're going to continue with what we've already proved, that's fine. That makes it easier. They can get that set up right away. We're trying not to go right up against the end of the year.
Right.
But we can also.
So what's our agenda look like for the first meeting and the only meeting currently scheduled in December that's a regular business meeting?
Reasonable, right?
I mean, the problem is we end up having like an hour to do business.
I'm still, again, a little bit of a loss. This to me looks like this is acceptable changes, but we're not hearing from anybody else that this is going to put them in some sort of financial peril. So I'm still a little bit lost as to what's going to happen and when.
Right. Hold on, Leo. And I guess
that's not a hit. That's not a hit against anybody. I'm still confused.
Yeah.
Who all will be impacted in this way?
And this is, I'm talking with you two gentlemen, is I've talked to staff about this and I've talked to Leo about this. The frustration I'm hearing from staff is, and I think that's why the volume of activity graph is included in the packet, which shows when we have the most activity that we can measure over our network, it's less than 10 gig. So one customer needing more than 10 gig is, from staff perspective, it's not a problem. And what I'm hearing Leo say is that I can't tell my customers how much they can use. And what the position I kind of feel like we're in is our staff is saying the market rate for 10 gig is we're way below that, and that what we're proposing gets us closer to market rate. And what I feel like Leo is kind of saying is, hey, you can't tell my customers how much, or I can't tell my customers how much to use. And I kind of feel like I can't tell you that either. But what I have to do, it's almost like a gas station owner saying, I can't tell you how much gas you can buy, but I have to tell you what it costs. And ultimately, then the customer has to decide. So we haven't, staff and Leo haven't resolved this issue yet. I don't know what it's going to come down to. It sounds like staff doesn't really have anything additional to present to us if we held a special meeting. Is that correct?
I don't have any additional information. Like I said, we've approved the rates and I'm fine with the existing rates. We're trying to make it a little easier on the customers.
And are we the only source in Jefferson County, or can an ISP?
Purchase transport from other providers?
Yes.
Yes.
And
In all locations, though.
what?
Not in all locations. Not to Marrowstone Island.
So we're the only provider to because you've got fiber on Marrowstone Island.
Oh yeah, we have fiber all over that island.
And the product you're purchasing from us to serve those customers is currently this transport product.
They're your only transport customer.
As far as you know.
No,
I can tell you I am.
We have full transport customers.
Okay.
Well, I don't know what we're going to accomplish
With another meeting.
with another meeting.
Other than potentially delay lower rates and clarifications in the policy.
Yeah.
The other thing I like to say is, like I said before, when you look at those rates from like Doug Dawson gave you like $2,000, $4,000, you got to realize that's going, you're right. That's not staying in the county. You're talking about, I want to get it from Seattle to New York.
Right. And you've made that point before. You gave us examples
Right.
of
So that,
yeah. Okay.
All those rates are always negotiable.
So at this point in time, staff proposes to bring these back to like the next agenda. Okay. Is that Joe? Shannon's nodding. Are you nodding? She's
works.
answering for you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Neither of us are here, so.
Oh, you're not going to be here at that? So you're fine with Mike taking the heat? And
Yeah, I'm gonna take the heat on that one.
Will, are you going to be here for that meeting?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay. I guess that's the plan for now. You're not asking for action. This is proposed for that meeting, and will it be on there as old business then? Okay. And Leo, you're welcome to talk to us more about it. I'm happy to talk to you more about it, try and understand it. But I kind of feel like I'm in that place of the gas station owner whose guy says, I have to charge this much for my product, and like, how much do you want to buy?
How does anybody compete with the PUD? I got to charge you $50.
You feel like you don't have another option, that this is the only option available to you. Yeah.
There are no other options.
Okay. All right. Well, on that incomplete note, we have reached the end of our agenda. So thank you, everybody. And it is 6:08 and we stand adjourned. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.